actually accusing another person of going to go to hell. He says, by Allah, this man is swearing, and the Prophet is telling this story. He says, by Allah, I swear that Allah is not going to forgive this person, so-and-so. Whereas Allah the Most High says, who is it that swears by me that I'm not going to forgive so-and-so? I have forgiven so-and-so and have rendered your actions in vain. Well, now immediately this tells us that we should be very careful that when we start to speak about anything, especially when we swear by Allah, that what we're saying is accurate, it's true. And we shouldn't assume the worst about Allah. We should assume the best about Allah. One of the things about Allah is His nature of what we call rahmah, or His graciousness, His mercy. Coming up here, and I wanted to deal with this too because it's another situation that we see very regularly these days. And it was said that the Prophet ﷺ stood amongst his companions to deliver his speech. And from his speech was that he said, indeed, it is about to occur that I will be called and I will respond. What this means is that the Prophet is saying that it's about to happen, that I'm going to die. He'll be called to Allah, and that he will respond to that. Very valuable lesson. And the Prophet ﷺ is explaining this lesson in details. Allah tells us in the Quran, for the believers, you have to obey Allah. Ati Allah, wa ati Rasul, which means that we also have to obey His messenger. One of the verses in the Quran clearly states, obey the messenger, so that you understand obedience to the messenger is, in fact, obedience to Allah. Now, there's a famous hadith which is misquoted very often by folks today when they come up to each other and they say, Adina Nasiha, that our way of Islam is advice. So, brother, I have to advise you. And they will begin by telling you your beard is too short, or that your pants are too long, or that your prayers are not acceptable, etc., etc. They're giving you what they're saying is nasiha. But in this hadith, my own immediate family and the people I know, except through programs like this, but still, what does this word mean, nasiha? It's better understood by going to the scholars of the Arabic language and asking them, which is what I did. And they said, actually, this is talking about a form of very deep sincerity. Very deep sincerity. Being loyal and obedient, and in doing it in sincerity. To be sincere and loyal to Allah. And the same to His messenger, to those in authority over you, and to the general public. And this can be done by anybody, and it makes sense. Now I want to come back and look at this hadith again, because we're learning here that the Prophet ﷺ is saying that I'm soon to die. He's telling his companions he's preparing for his death, which is imminent for all of us. It's going to happen. But now here he's saying that specifically, there are going to be people after me who have knowledge, and they're going to be rulers over me. They're the ones that we should be turning to get this information, to understand that there's a whole lot more here than one or two hadiths. And certainly when you read the rest of what we're going to be talking about in this program, you're going to realize that, in fact, this is correct, that we have to balance that. When do I change something by my hand, and what does that mean, change it by my hand? And He told you right here, if you're accompanying them, then differ with them by your actions. Your actions. This is what we learn how to work together. Even though some of the things are difficult, we'll go back to the first hadith we mentioned, and that's talking about what to do when you have rulers over you who are not having the right knowledge or acting on the right knowledge, but still, if they do good, verify that it's good from it. When they do evil, then mention that the same way. And be fair in our dealings. And we're going to come back for more of this in a few minutes. We're going to take a break. Stay right there. And we'll be back with more of Way of the Muslim, defining the Muslim character. Bismillah, we're back. You're watching Way of the Muslim, defining the Muslim's character. We've been talking on some of the issues that face us every day and the advice given to us on how to deal with these problems by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago. Some of the hadith that we discussed dealt with the issues of those who would be rulers over us not having the knowledge of Islam, acting according to what they had, which would be against the right teachings. And then what should be our response? What we gained in knowledge from these hadith, or teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that we have to be steadfast, very much so, in doing what? And giving allegiance and obedience to those who are in authority, in as much as they are doing what is right, but avoiding doing what they would order you to do, which is wrong. And this makes sense because the Quran teaches this even in specific cases, not to mention the general case. If you look to Surah Al-Luqman, for instance, chapter 31, in the Quran, when you find that the man who is having this wisdom from Allah into Islam, I observed a lot of things, actions, difficulties, and the brotherhood as well of the Muslims. But I noticed that there is this problem that when there's some authority, when the emir says something, immediately there are a few who want to go against that and say something different, just because they don't like the emir. Never mind what the statement was. No, they just generalize and say, well, you know, he's not really on the right Islam, so therefore we're not going to even listen to this guy. And this is not correct. This is not the right way. Because we cannot contribute to a society that we abandon. We cannot benefit the people around us by taking what we have, which we assume to be correct, and then abandoning everybody, going away from everybody, leaving everybody, and then we're not helping. Even in the case where Aisha was talking, radiallahu anha, was talking about the Prophet ﷺ, in the one hadith we talked about, where the man came in to wanted to speak to the Prophet, want to destroy themselves and destroy the deen as well. So all of this is leading us up to the conclusion that there's a balance. There's a real nice balance in Islam. When you see evil, of course we have to be against it. The Quran is replete with these types of admonitions to us to call the people to the right way and to forbid what is evil. This what tu'minun billah, coming after these two actions. When we asked the scholars about that, they said this is specific for this ayah, because it means if you're not willing to call the people to what is right and righteous, and you're not willing to forbid those things which were evil and hated by Allah, then how can you say, I believe in Allah? But now let us continue with that ayah and look a little bit closer to that, because it continues. Not true. That is not the meaning. That is not what's in the Quran. And I think really and truly, if we take time to think about this and look at it, we'll realize that to stay in balance with what Islam is teaching is clear. Whoever believes in Allah, that He's one, without partners, and they're trying their best to worship Him and obey Him, acting on what they know. Now, specifically, we've been talking about that in this program, acting upon what they know to the best. And the old become infirm, and if anything of it is abandoned, it's said the sunnah has been abandoned. And it was said, when is this going to occur? And they're asking him. He says, it's going to be when your scholars pass away, and the ignorant amongst you become many, when those who recite amongst you are many, but those who have understanding of the religion are few. When your leaders are many, but those who are trustworthy are few. When this world is sought with actions of the hereafter, and when knowledge is sought for other than the religion. The whole, this is not a hadith, by the way, this is a saying of one of the most trusted companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a teaching of one of the great teachers of Islam, who of course memorized the entire Quran and relates to us many of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he's telling us this not of his own volition. He's telling you very clear, these are prophecies. And we find these mentioned in other books as well, but it's summed here very well. He's asking, what are you going to do during the time of this great fitna when it comes? And they're saying, oh, what fitna are we talking about here? And he says it's going to occur when the scholars pass away. And that's strange because, really in recent years I've seen some of the top scholars of Islam, wonderful teachers of Islam, the people who I look up to myself, and they're dying. Several died all in the same year. In 1990, different nations, we find different leaders. Until today, we have so many Muslim countries with so many different leaders. Again, that's what it says right here. Leaders are many, but those that are trustworthy are few. And when this world is sought with actions of the hereafter, meaning here, now let me clarify that. Well, this is when somebody is going after the hereafter and at the same time using that as a way to finance themselves here. Again, I don't want to have other programs on this subject of developing the Muslim character. That what happens is that sometimes people are trying to get knowledge just so they can do one-upmanship. My knowledge is better than your knowledge, but who has all knowledge? Allah Azim. Allah is having all the knowledge. He is Al-Alim. And he tells us in the Quran, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. So you're not having